song.
Okay. Victoria, I can untap for a second.
All right. Yeah, I decided last night that we needed a opening theme song and video, so I put that together. This is episode 4 of Jazz Explained. I will introduce Pat Coil, our guest, first because he's there.
Hello.
Pat Coil's joining us from Nashville. And from Manhattan, Frank David Greene, trumpet player renowned.
Don't know for what yet, but we'll find
out. But we're here. I thought these guys would be great because they spend a lot of their year touring or in recording studios talking about the music world as it's been and jazz how it's been and what may happen, what they're going through now, and then what may happen in the future. We don't know yet. So let me, for those of you that don't know them, go through these bios quick. Pat is an accomplished pianist, composer, producer, arranger, teacher, and studio musician. He's toured all over the world, most recently with Michael McDonald, Carmen McRae, Vince Gill, Amy Grant, Woody Herman, Larry Carlton, and Olivia Newton-John. Partial recording credits include Natalie Cole, Nancy Wilson, Carmen McRae, Trisha Yearwood. There's a lot of people on this list, Pat. George Strait, Barry Manilow, Kenny Rogers, Travis Tritt, Woody Herman, and Pat's been in a while now. Nashville for a while now. We had him back in Denton for a couple of years, and then he went back to Nashville.
Yes, yes.
Anything I missed there, Pat?
That was plenty, you know.
Okay.
One of those things where I've been around long enough to do a lot of things, and lucky enough to. But yeah, my 3 years there were wonderful, wonderful years, and I was trying to live here and work there and be on the road all at the same time, and something had to give. So
that was rough, yeah.
So, I decided that all my grandkids are here in Tennessee, and most of my kids, except for one who's in LA. So I came back to Nashville, which I love. So it all worked out great, and I got to hang out with Dan for a little bit when I was there. So
yeah,
I got to play a little bit, so which was nice. And Sergio, I see he's here somewhere.
Sergio's here.
Yeah,
hiding behind his album cover.
A nice cover, Sergio.
All right, and Frank David Greene started his musical career living 3 doors down in the dorm from me.
Which dorm?
We can't say because there was a fire we can't admit to. Allegedly, Mike and I learned the word allegedly when we were in college.
Well, no, there was graffiti related to my roommate on a door that I found still there 20 years later. But Frank,
allegedly.
Well, you got a nice quote from David here at the start. Frank is one of the most in-demand lead trumpet players in New York and spent 3 years as lead trumpet player for the CBS Orchestra from David Letterman.
Wow.
Frank was raised.
On that day?
Yeah. Was it? Did it end up 3 years total?
It was about 3, a little bit more, maybe 3.5 years.
Okay. Yeah, and in fact, when we were in the dorm together, because you got there, what ended up being my senior year, we'd sit in the TV room watching Letterman, and that spring semester, I was writing music for NBC, and we'd sit and watch Letterman. I'd say, you know what, when Paul Schaefer ends up leaving, I may take over for him if that works out. But it was the other guy that ended up in the Letterman band.
Dave retired before Paul, right?
Yeah. But Frank was raised in Northern California. It says to non-musical family, but I know both of his parents were incredible people and had incredible lives of their own outside of music. He's alumnus of North Texas, lead trumpet player in the 1 O'Clock, and then joined Woody Herman, Maynard Ferguson after that. Frank, what was your first non-1 O'Clock lab band recording session?
Oh, well, I did things with you.
Right.
Remember that we did those music for CBS Sports, and it was a fun thing to like.
We did a first one was, well, the one was a piece called Perpetual Motion that ended up theme for an Orange Bowl and opening music for a baseball all-star game.
Yep, I remember that. I think I remember a few of the melodies now. I'm not going to sing them because that was
but you were
great fun.
You were with Maynard for a long time. That led to a lot of great contacts, but then you've also played in many Broadway shows. You were on the album for the Producers.
Mm-hmm.
You played lead for basically every big band out there. Christian McBride's band, Jimmy Heath, Bob Mintzer, Frank Foster, Frank West, Roy Hargrove, who we talked about a couple of episodes ago, Clark Terry, Dizzy Gillespie. And then you've done TV projects and recordings with Christine Aguilera, Kevin Spacey. You were on the Very Murray Christmas special. Is that the name of it?
Mm-hmm.
I even saw you show up in the background, little jazz combo in Mrs. Maisel.
Oh,
watching
yeah,
Mrs. Maisel, I'm like, that's Frank.
That was 11 hours of torture.
Waiting around.
It is for 4 seconds, but
Yep, for like half a song.
Yeah, but I'll take it. It was fun. We got to play at least. We get credit for playing because that was actually us playing. We didn't play the track. So.
Right.
It was nice. Because usually they have you play the track, so you don't have to worry about being warmed up or anything. You just kind of throw your horn up and pretend to play. But in this case, you kind of had to stay ready to play, so it was like double whammy. But I won't complain. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, in L.A. we used to do, they call them, we'd go and pretend to play on TV shows. It was
you sideline yourself.
Yeah, usually call it sidelining. We would wait around.
At least if you sideline yourself, there's a different feel to it if you're sidelining yourself. Because we did backup tracks for Maisel just in case we couldn't get audio that would work. So, but
so you got
when I'm sidelining a friend of mine, I always feel a little weird,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It made you look good.
But you two guys in past years, in normal times, how many days of a year are you generally out on the road?
Well,
Pat probably should answer that.
For depends on the year. The last year, which was way different than this year, it was like we'd have a summer tour, we had a Christmas tour, then we'd usually do a few weeks in the spring. So I don't know how many days it adds up to, but it was quite a big part of the year.
Good percentage of the and this year.
This year,
were you going to be basically out all summer with Michael McDonald?
Not well. He was going to go do the Doobie Brothers, so we were going to have just a few hits in between, and then, but more in the spring and stuff. So now it's all up in the air because, the Doobie Brothers had their 50th anniversary or something like that, and then they just got inducted to the Hall of Fame, and so they were going to do a big tour, and the Doobie Brothers isn't us, so. Hopefully there's going to be.
Right.
Hopefully there's going to be after this mess clears up. Hopefully there'll be more to come, because it is a wonderful gig and a lot of fun, and he's a great guy. So
yeah,
can't come.
Is it? Are the rumors true that he has a farm outside of Nashville with a sign out front that says "Old McDonald's Farm"?
He did have a farm. I don't know about the sign. But he has since moved back to California. He lives in Santa Barbara.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of his permanent residence now. He still has a studio here, which we rehearse in and stuff like that. and he still do recording there.
I have a question for you, Pat.
Yeah.
How many guys do your impression of Michael McDonald on the bus when he's not around?
Oh. Well, usually,
come on, I know someone has to.
It's usually people that come up to that, in conversations, that decide to. And I've seen people do it to him, which is always fun, like. And he's a good sport about it, I think
Robbie Dupree made a lot of money imitating him on one song.
Yeah. My favorite story that Michael tells is he was in an airport once, and this guy came up to him and had a much younger wife, and he went, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's you, honey. Do you know who this is?" And she goes, "Captain Kangaroo."
Uh-oh.
Anyway.
Sure. What's funny is all those years with Maynard, he would have gone along with that and signed the autograph Captain Kangaroo.
Right. Yeah.
He just go after a while. You just go with it. Why fight it?
Yeah.
Yes, I am Captain Kangaroo. Actually, I charged $100 for an autograph. Is that?
Woody wouldn't have gone along with it, though. I don't think Woody would have a good sport about that.
Yeah. Probably.
And Frank, you're normally touring a good part of the year too. I know I'll hear from you and you're in France, and then I'll hear from you and you're in Japan, and I never know where you are.
Well, I try to keep away from my wife so she can't, if it keeps, she knows where I am. So, no, seriously, the cool part about playing in these ensembles is that these jazz festivals will overlap. And so, one time we were out, I was out with Roy Hargrove's band, and the Vanguard band were almost kind of out at the same time because the gigs were close enough. We could kind of jump around. Or in one case, we finished off with the Vanguard band, and Roy's band picked up at the North Sea Festival. So we did the Vanguard band, and we did the North Sea, and we did the Roy's band that night, I think, or the next night. And then we just stayed in Europe and went out with Roy for the rest of the tour while the guys in the Vanguard flew back. So that happens quite a bit. I'll have overlap between, Minster might have something that tours in the U.S., and then I could maybe split from a different city than New York and then go out with Christian McBride or something like that.
Do you play in the Vanguard band regularly?
I was in the band for almost 10 years, but
because I think that's where I recognize you from, because every time we go to New York, it seemed like we had a night off on Mondays, and I'd go and see, the guys.
I was there. It's not my fault. If it sounded good, I was there. If it didn't sound good.
It always sounds good.
Yeah. So it's pretty fun now that I'm playing leading the Count Basie band now. So that band's doing a bit of touring too. So we're looking forward to hopefully going to Japan again pretty soon and having some more travel. But I'm not on the road too much because I also do a Broadway show, and so you can't be away too much, but you can do enough. So it's enough to keep you busy. If you have a show and you're touring with 2 or 3 different bands, your schedule is pretty filled. So it's nice. Post-COVID, hopefully.
So because you said you would have been this week playing West Side Story, when would that have started? Or when was it scheduled?
Our show started in December of last year. So we've actually been going about maybe 10 weeks or so when this happened. So we're looking forward to going back to that, hopefully. So I think if you can do a few more than you can kind of skirt the 50% a bit, but they don't like you to. But if you're out playing, sometimes I would play. Years ago I'd do the Dizzy band, and then I'd go out with Roy's band and come back, and Clark Terry would have something, and so you're doing so much overlap that you end up coming back, and the contractor would say to you, "Hey man, you're here like 10%, so you should probably try to get it together." So, but that doesn't always happen. But that's one nice thing about playing with so many different big bands is that there's a lot of overlap. So a lot of times your schedules don't conflict too much. I mean, occasionally you have a thing where you might play with a band, do an afternoon gig somewhere else and then do an evening gig somewhere else in a different club in the same town. So that happens occasionally, and that's it's kind of fun to play. Like for instance, play Count Basie music for like an afternoon thing, and then go and play with Roy Hargrove that night. So that's that kind of a thing it's fun, but it's stressful.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like anything else. It's like being on the 405, but without having a gig. It's stressful and not completely stressful.
Yeah, and you started, was it last year you started with Basie? Was that when I saw you?
It's been about a year and a half now.
Yeah.
Maybe about that, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the other guy was a gig hog and was on the gig for like 35 years. You know what I'm talking about.
I know.
What a gig hog.
He was just about from the time he left North Texas, he got on there and stayed.
He stayed for many years. Yeah, yeah. He was
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. Mike was a good guy. Well, he still is a good guy. So
Yeah.
glad to be able to fill in a few days while he's away.
Well, so other than skateboarding around an empty town and drinking coffee, what have you been doing since March?
Me doing lots of these.
Yeah.
I mean, these are actually pretty fun. It's a good chance to kind of catch up with everybody, when you're kind of stuck at home, and I've watched every episode of Matlock 50 times. So it's kind of nice to be able to sit and talk to people.
Well, was the Vinyl Hampton recording during this, or was that before?
No, a few bands that I play with they're going to do their whole albums. I think Vinyl Hampton's going to do its whole album remotely, as opposed to how we did it before. A couple bands I play with are thinking about doing their albums remotely. I mean, it's not my favorite. I'm friends with Wayne Bergeron. I think we were talking about that. I've known Wayne 35 years, maybe 37 years, I guess now. Sheesh. And we were talking about, it's just, you can play and not make as many mistakes as you want. No one has to know if you suck because you can fix it. But that part's good. But I miss playing with the guys and blending with timbres and telling jokes and all the stuff that you do. You don't get to do any of that. I don't, you know how it is. It's not as fun to phone everything in as.
So where did you go to record your parts?
Well, some stuff I'll do here, but my neighbors will go crazy if I do too much here because that's still New York City apartment. But I'll go to a studio. A friend of mine has a studio about an hour north of here, so I'll do a bunch of stuff at his studio. Phil Bullock.
Yeah.
Oh, Phil Bullock. He did all the 1 o'clock recordings.
Yeah.
Oh, Phil is great. I mean, half the time we're so busy laughing. It's like oh shoot, we gotta also do some recording. So.
Yeah, the problem. Keyboard parts are easy because we're going directly in. I recorded trumpet parts for a demo for an album here, and it was the day my across the street neighbors decided to chop down their tree and then have a shredder run the tree through the shredder at the same time. So I've got that noise in the background, and in between notes, my dog is barking at And this was going to an engineer that had worked with U2 and all these groups. I said, look, this is just demo parts at home. Ignore the tree shredding and the dog barks and that.
Well, it's like, Electric Lady Studios in the city, right?
Yeah.
If you can actually hear the subway go underneath there. When it's really quiet, sometimes you'll kind of, they have to like take that out because it's the same kind of thing. It's like right when it, please stand away from the platform. You can hear your fair share of rumble and stuff in Electric Lady. Same kind of thing. It's like, so you have to like you say, have to just deal with it and just take it out. Use your software and take out the rumble, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, what have you been doing since March?
Well, I guess the silver lining of all this is doing online work, and it seems like I've always had a project going of one kind or another, and a lot of singers. That's a challenging thing because a lot of times they want just piano and voice rubato, and trying to do that remotely, not at the same time, is a challenge. And trying to recreate a natural symbiosis there is really hard. So a lot of times I'll play the track and she'll sing to it, and then she'll send me back like her phrasing, and then I'll play it again, and then we sort of come to an agreement. But there's been lots of overdubs. I'm writing a bunch of library music. I work for a couple of different library companies. Work for a company that does stuff for Entertainment Tonight and all those kind of things. So I'm writing a lot of cues. And in Nashville, recording has started up again, and the the studios, they take your temperature when you go in, and they require you to mask, and everybody stays. I pretty much, of course, there's varying degrees of compliance by the other players and engineers, so I tend to stay in the piano room and try to stay out of the control room. But it's still going on, it is happening. I've heard of brass sections where the brass players are on, spread out all over the room. I've heard of vocal sessions where they're spread out all over the room. I don't know about string dates, like how those are happening, but I know they're happening. So there is stuff going on, just not as much. And I have to say, I did a Christmas record the other day, and it was an actual big band Christmas record.
Oh.
Usually you would do the whole band in the room at the same time. Everybody's playing the chart, and this time the composer had the band pre-recorded in his Pro Tools or Logic, and so that was what we would hear in the phones to play to. And I got to say, it was challenging because there's just no natural feel of feeling like you know exactly where to fill and where to lay back and all that stuff that you naturally would with a live band. So
right.
But there's stuff going on. Definitely.
And you've been teaching online too, right?
Just a little bit, yeah. I haven't been really advertising for students, but I have a few, that approach me, and so since this started happening, now I've had them approach me about doing online stuff. So I've been trying to learn the Zoom thing as far as audio to make it sound good, and have sort of figured it out now. I think I've got it. I think the challenge is, like with the students, they need to figure it out too. So when they play for me, it can sound, clear enough where I can hear what they're doing. And
yeah,
I'm sure, Dan, I'm sure you know all about that. So
that's the hardest part, because we can we have audio interfaces and microphones and running the original sound, and then they've got an iPhone 6,
right,
and background noise, and their siblings watching the TV, and
it's a challenge for sure.
Yeah. Frank, have you been doing some of the teaching and coaching through this?
I mostly just work with students coaching now. I hardly ever teach trumpet. I mean, I'm kind of moving away a bit from teaching trumpet so much and doing more coaching, because I feel like for me, it's more rewarding. And so I feel like maybe it's a bit more valuable, maybe, than teaching a kid to play a high note. Right. And, because that's kind of, they'll say, hey, teach me to play a high note. And I'll say, in what context? And they go, huh? It's like, let's talk about something else. So I find it a bit more rewarding. We talked about this, a bit more rewarding to do coaching.
Right. Well, most of the people here don't know you have a pretty unique approach to that, and helping people really plan to be successful. And you've done a couple of books on that. Can you talk about some of that?
I think that years ago, I think that a lot of times music is a tricky business anyway, right? I think that school can only do, as we talked about, school can only do so much because there's so many students. I mean, you've got, a bunch of teachers, and you have a bunch of administrators, and you have a whole bunch of students. There's a whole bunch of moving parts at the school. I think it's hard for any one student, unless they're extremely pragmatic or extremely driven or well-trained by parents or, some other person that got to them before they got to college. With all the chaos and parties and classes and what do I focus on, what do I not focus on, it's real easy for, a school of music like North Texas, for students to slip through the cracks because the school can't catch everybody. You know what I mean? By design, maybe it shouldn't, but I think if you can kind of come out with a different mentality, like, I have access to Pat Coil, right? The first thing I want to talk to him about is how do I get to play with Amy Grant? Which I want to talk to you about that later, by the way. But, so it's like, just working with students, they can kind of think in a way past just scales and transcribe solos and a high note and listening to Terry Gibbs band. And, it's like the stuff that is like the intangible stuff, that school can't possibly teach on a mass level. Now, if I went to, Dan Hurley, I could speak to him on a one-on-one level, but I don't even know what questions to ask. You know what I mean? And so, where they say garbage in, garbage out in computers. And so I might ask him a bunch of questions that aren't really clearly stated enough. So I might get some answers that aren't really applicable to what I need to know. And so what I want to do is educate students on what kinds of questions they can ask, or who to ask those questions to, even before they get to college, so they can put themselves in a position to do well. I think that's the biggest trick, is to try to understand how to put yourself in a position to do well, because it's still a tricky shoot anyway, right? Even if you know, under the best circumstances. But, you know, I would say to students, you know, if your target is here and your gun is here, you might hit the target. But if the target is here and your gun is here, you see what I'm saying? You still could miss. You could sneeze while you're shooting, but your chances go way down if you know what I mean? So it's kind of that kind of thing. So that's the kind of coaching I try to do with students, to get them to understand, you know, how relationships work, you know, things like that.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to being successful in music than playing your instrument.
And they don't know that. A lot of times they still can't teach that. They're too busy with other things.
Well, because they have to work with them on learning to play their instrument and learn theory and learn to play in an ensemble. That side of networking and planning how to be successful, there's not enough time in the curriculum to cover that.
I think a lot of times schools are a little bit apprehensive to have someone like me there, so I kind of have to do what I call school adjacent, because they don't necessarily want to have me there if they think I might say something that goes against what they're teaching. In reality, if you know, it's a new thing. I know people are not used to thinking about having this, or people aren't thinking about having me in that way. And so I have to explain to the teachers, here's my agenda, is for you to first tell me what you like your students to know, so we can have that as a starting point. So I can reiterate what they're saying, so that they know, hey, my teacher is knowledgeable, you know. And so so I think at first there might be a little apprehensive, like, hey, are you going to say something that might go against, you know, what we're teaching, or might make me look bad, or something, or might make me, you know, I don't want to be a jerk. And so, but after a while they realize, no, we're trying to, it's a team effort, you know. But it's taking a little while for them to realize that. But it's coming around. You know, I think that they're seeing that it's a necessity, because once a person can get to some of those things, and then I can come to Dan Hurley and ask a better question. And so he doesn't have to try to read my mind to what I might need. I could just go to him straight and say, hey, I'd like to meet this kind of person, that kind of person, for these kinds of things. Do you think would that be the good course of action? He might say, yeah, I see why you want that, but maybe you might want to go this way, this way, and this way. Versus, hey, teach me to be a good piano player that works a lot. How are you supposed to answer that question? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I want to do, is get students to be a little bit more pragmatic about how they go about things.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy. That's good. I've always tried to impart, you know, the necessity to be versatile. You know, because I've always, you know, my goal is to have students who end up working, and you know, there's so much, like you say, there's so much else that goes into it besides the playing part. And I mean, if someone has, you know, I always put it the example of, like, there's two identically talented musicians, or piano players, keyboard players, whatever, and one shows up at the gig with the attitude of, like, well, you know, this is really not my favorite gig, and, you know, kind of the attitude, I really don't want to be here, and, like, you know, the attitude.
We all know that one.
Yeah, we all know that one. And then the equally talented guy that comes and says, what can I do for you, and how can I be of service, and how, you know, in the studio world, that's like, you know, that's like, how can you be of service to the song, how can you be of service to the producer, how can you be of service to the artist? And, you know, with that as the primary goal of what you do, and then, you know, there's no question about who gets called back. And so those are the kinds of things that I think, you know, are important to try to teach along with everything else.
That's a tough thing. We go through those school programs, and we're trying to learn to be able to read anything, play anything, and you get out in the studio and they want you just to hold a C, F, and G chord, and you go, well, can I put in the 9th? Can I put in the 13th? Can I do substitute? Nope.
Oh, no, especially in Nashville.
For this song, you need to play those 3 triads, and that's what's going to make that song work.
Yeah, I remember when we talked about this earlier before, when I first moved to Nashville, I had a couple of people say, just don't let them know that you play jazz and you'll be fine. And I'm going, what? And they were serious, though. And so I sort of started thinking about it. I'm going, well, okay, you know, I spent a lot of time in L.A. playing on TV shows and film scores. I'll kind of try to, like, have that be more like my thing. And then I went and heard this piano player named Matt Rawlings, who's like, I don't know if you guys know who he is, but was like the #1 keyboard country piano player for years and years and years and years, and has played on everybody's record. Incredible musician. And I went out to hear him at the club, and he was playing. It was a jazz gig, and like he's a Berkeley guy. He was just blazing. You know, he was playing And after I heard that, and a couple other people that were supposedly just great country artists or great pop artists, musicians, I decided I'm just going to play and let people categorize me where they want. And
it's funny because I actually talked to students about that. When I was in North Texas not long ago, one of the teachers brought me in to talk to his trumpet students, and I said to them, don't be well-rounded. And the teacher said, what? I said, I tell them that. It's like, well, you probably shouldn't. And the reason I say that is because people don't buy that way. You know what I'm saying? No one ever said, because it's like kids have to understand. If someone says this guy's a great lead player, jazz player, flute player, chef, and a sous chef, and he also makes great sushi, that's too confused, too much. If someone says he's a great lead player and jazz player and classical player, there's a little bit of doubt you have that he's going to be as good at those three things as any one guy would be at one thing. And so we don't buy that way. So when a contractor is looking for someone for a show, let's say, hey, I need a good lead player, or I need a guy that can play a little bit of jazz in a Latino vibe, or like a little, like a salsa vibe or whatever, cumbia. We need someone that can do that. But they'll say I need a lead player that does this, or I need a jazz player that does that. They don't usually say I need a lead player, jazz player, classical player. So I tell students, focus on the thing that you kind of do the best, and round out from there.
Yeah.
Don't try to be well-rounded. If anything, do this with a couple of humps like that. Maybe, you know what I mean? Where it's like you can bring that to the equation later. Like you're saying, you don't maybe tell everybody, you don't lead with I play jazz, but you show them later.
Play to your strength. Like have a strength that a basic.
Yeah, because I think people don't buy that way. We don't. You know what I'm saying? We don't buy Coca-Cola because it could take the rust off the penny. You know what I mean? It can do that, but we don't buy it for that. You know what I mean? And so I tell students all the time, one of the things I think it's a mistake that a lot of schools make is they tell you to be well-rounded, right? And the problem with guys come to town and they advertise themselves as being well-rounded, and it kind of confuses people that hire, because they're looking for a specific thing, and you're saying, well, I'm all these things, and it's like, I just want to try it. Yeah, but listen to this. It's like, no, but I could do this. It's like, just go with your strengths, lead with your strengths, and then later on, like you're talking about, later on, let them know, hey, you also play jazz.
Right.
But I think it's ill-advised, especially nowadays, to be too well-rounded, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to be hiring you for one specific thing anyway. Sometimes it's not even what. A friend of mine was going to play with Megan Trainor. You know Megan Trainor?
Yeah.
And he asked me, what do I need to know to go on the road with Megan Trainor? And I went, well, I mean, with Megan Trainor, he said, yeah. I said, well, here's the thing, is that, when you're on the road with her, make sure you never, ever, 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 ever run out of hair gel. You know what I'm saying? Because, a friend of mine wanted to borrow my piccolo trumpet to play with Shakira on TV, right? And I said, why would you want my piccolo trumpet? That's on track anyway. I mean, you could play like a banjo, and it's, no one would know. Because he said, because they want to see the horn.
Right.
So it's like, I think, so that brings you to initial thing, right? Which is the first order of business is know who your primary customer is, right? We talked about that, because your primary customer is everything. So if you understand the nature of your primary customer, then it makes it real easy to know what to do.
Right.
And so sometimes people will think their primary customer is the audience, when in reality, the audience is the club owner's primary customer. And the band leader's primary customer is the club owner. And your primary customer is the band leader. So if you think you're playing for the audience, unless you are a band leader, you're kind of getting that wrong. So Here you are thinking, well, the crowd loves me, right? But you're forgetting that, you're showing off and you're pissing off the band leader, but you think you're doing great. And then you don't get a phone call next time you try to blame everyone else. No, it's your fault for not knowing who your primary customer is.
Right. And if you were standing on that stage by yourself with the piccolo trumpet, the crowd's not going to clap like that.
You dig? They don't even know you're up there. They just see Shakira. It's like Shakira and a bunch of dudes. I don't know how many of them there were.
Well, we've talked about, too, if you're on a band with Roy and Randy Brecker, you don't need to worry about playing jazz. They got that
No,
covered.
I don't even want to play jazz. That's the Slide-Hampton. I told you that story with Slide. We were playing Night in Tunisia, and I would never play a cadenza. Antonio Hart would play a cadenza. Slide-Hampton would play a cadenza. Then maybe Randy or Claudio Roditi would play a cadenza, and then we'd, play the last chord. So one day we were in Germany, I think it was, and we were exhausted, and Slide points, but Slide's a little older, so he's pointing. I'm thinking he's got to be pointing at Randy or at Roy Hargrove, right, or Greg Gisbert. And he's looking at, I'm like, and I go like this. I go, with all these guys that are up here, why on earth would I be? But that's how Slide was. So every now and then you get caught out, but for the most part, it's like you got these guys that do that. If I hand like things that come to Randy Brecker, he's going to hand it back. Here you go. Here's your chart back. Because everyone knows kind of what they do. It's kind of what I said before. You don't want to be too well-rounded, or else you wind up like Bobby Shue having to play lead on Buddy's band when you're not really a lead player. Having to crazy glue your lip back together.
Wow.
So being well-rounded can be a curse if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So Frank, are you working on a new book, or is there one coming out?
Officially, no. Unofficially,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I figured you were. How many do you have out?
Well, I'm trying to release them all at the same time. So I'm going to release 3 books in the next month. So they're all very soon. Hopefully that can happen. So we'll see. So I'll have 5. I'll have 6 total.
That's a lot. Now I know what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Besides Matlock, I watch Matlock and set my computer. I watch Matlock and do this and erase, delete.
So Pat, has Michael and the other groups given any indication when things may be going back out on the road? And it's hard to judge now.
Not really. I was talking to him the other day. He actually called me for a lesson. Believe it or not, he's great. He's like such an incredible player, but he wants to know jazz voicings. So he's always asking me, and I did recommend your book to him, Dan. And but I'm not sure whether he got it. I'm not sure he reads music. So, but he told me that it's, they're probably going to be doing the Doobie Brothers next summer. So I don't know what that means for us. I mean, we may be done as far as I know. It's like, it just depends on whether he wants to book other gigs around that tour, So
he hasn't talked about any stream type concerts or virtual concerts?
He's doing some.
Okay.
He's doing some, yeah. There's actually a really good one that he and Dave Sanborn did that you can find. And he's done a few just solo things, I think, from home and stuff like that. But other than that, not much.
How's Dave Sanborn doing? Have you seen Dave at all?
No, I haven't. No.
He's a hoot, right? That guy, he's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't know because he seems like he's so low key, but he's a hoot.
I don't know him that well. I know we're
but all it takes is one time. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. We're fellow Missourians. So as is Mike. So, yeah. So yeah, we're all waiting for this to be over so we can get out and play again.
Do you think with so many people doing stream concerts that these may become part of what is part of performance activity that continues on?
I don't know. I mean, part of me really hopes not, because it's just, there's just nothing like being with people and reacting and having an audience react to what you do and the whole thing. It's like, it's just, you don't get that. And it's another animal. It's another, like you've got painting and sculpture, and I've always considered studio to be one art form and playing live to be another art form, and this online thing now, streaming, is like a whole nother one. It's
Right.
like we've added another one to it, and it's it's good that it's there. I think it's definitely, for these times, it's a great outlet. And I spend a lot of time just kind of scrolling and looking, here's a band from wherever. They sound really good, playing on the front porch of something. You know, so that's good in some ways. Where these are people I would never find or listen to. You know, of course, along with that, there's a lot of not so great stuff, but it's, you know, I think it is what it is, and it's okay for now. We just got to get past it, get back to live.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind, and I'm hoping when we continue our concert series, Dallas Jazz Piano Society, with live audiences, that we can continue streaming those, because we have a wider reach, wider audience that way. It's not just people in the Dallas area that can drive to Kauai up in Plano for that event, and I'm hoping we continue to build a wider audience that way.
Right.
Well, it's a tough one, because I know, like at Smalls, I think
Yes.
Dizzy's does it.
Yeah.
They do a live stream night. And so sometimes I wish they would do the last night, because the band's tighter than the first night. But sometimes I think it's good or it's bad, because I know it's like, have you ever, like, all the concerts you went to when you were younger, right? And they were so great and they were so wonderful. And you listen back to the tape of it, it doesn't quite sound the same. Or you hear someone who's burning in the studio and it doesn't quite translate to the recorded medium, right?
Right.
But you know, if they heard that live, it would be a whole different thing. Because live is what made it so exciting, but the ability for that to translate into a video monitor or onto whatever microphone is in the room, it doesn't mesh. So I think sometimes there's definitely a benefit. If you can't be in, you know, Osaka, then okay, it's great. But you have to realize that what you're hearing isn't really what they're hearing.
Yeah, it's not the same energy.
Yep. And here's how I really found that out, to be honest with you. My wife and I went to Kings Island for her birthday. Now, I don't mind riding roller coasters. I love roller coasters. But after about 10 of them in a row, you got, you know, you feel like a test, what is it, a test dummy?
You feel like Chuck Yeager.
Yeah, you dig. So we were going on this ride, and I thought, you know what? I don't know if I can take this. So I went to YouTube while we were in the line, and I YouTubed it. And I thought, okay, let me at least get a POV of the YouTube of this roller coaster to see if I can even do this. So I looked at the YouTube of it, and the people were behind me going, hey, you're cheating. I was like, yeah, be quiet. But I'm watching it thinking, okay, I could do this ride, right? So we got on it, and I realized what you're seeing on a video is missing at least a solid third of what it really is in real life.
Right.
Because the ride itself versus the POV of the ride, woo! I mean, it was. My wife and I had to laugh, because it's like, you watch stuff on YouTube, and it's only maybe 2/3 at most of what it really is. And so it's, you know, you can only do so much in a little box. I think sometimes being there the compression of the air, like, you know, when a piano player does this, you know what I mean? The way it might sound on the microphone might be one thing, but when you hear that, you hear the air moves and the audience gasps, and you get all that in the live performance. You can't get that really on a box, you know. So I'm kind of hoping that a little bit of this stays, but we go back to just being together again, because, you know, I love the idea of Elon Musk, but I don't love putting our computer right here and all of us just sitting on our eyes closed, pretending to be somewhere that we're not. Nothing against Elon.
I think what I missed, one of the things I missed the most was the other day I did a session, and in between tunes, me and the bass player just started jamming.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what's that? You know, what's the fun? We actually, you know, because so much of it is about the hang and having a great time, which translates into the session being successful.
Mm-hmm. And you miss all that being at home. I mean, Grant, I can sit in my pajamas and drink my coffee and play the track.
You have pants on, right?
Well, who knows, right? That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and music started as a communal event to bring people together. Even if they weren't trained musicians, music was there to bring communities together. And we do miss that in the live events and being in the same space with people.
Because imagine Thelonious Monk, right, on a webcam, right? The camera's pointed at the keyboard. You see Thelonious, he hits a note, and then all of a sudden he's just gone out of the screen. I mean, but you're at the concert, you realize he's walked about 80 yards all over the stage, came back, played 3 more notes, and did it again. You know what I mean? So things just don't translate, you know, into this medium as well as, you know, being there live would be. I think a Monk concert would definitely be one of the big ones.
And all the stuff Dizzy did off to the side with the big band.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You'd never see any of that.
You have to have 19 cameras for that and 15 other extra microphones, yeah, to make all that. Yeah.
I have seen some things where when guys are playing live together online, that they do get really close to having that feeling that it's just another. It's like I say, it's another medium, and they figured it out and how to get the energy across.
Figure it out. I kind of don't want us to figure this out. I'm kind of an anti-AI kind of person, so for me, I kind of don't want us to figure this out because I feel like the more we start taking people out of the equation, I never see that as being a good thing.
No.
So I think that we might. I think people love the idea of taking people out of the equation until they're the person that's being taken out of the equation.
Oh yeah.
I think we need to have a little better foresight, and to keep thinking that, hey, let's go to driverless cars. Let's not go to driverless cars. That.
Yeah, that scares me. That's for sure.
Next time, hey, pilotless airplanes. Let's not go to that. It's like I like to have a couple guys up there in the front.
Hey, setting up because we weren't able to. Pat and I were going to be involved in a show back in March, tribute to Lyle Mays, and you sent an incredible story. Could you share that with everybody that's here now? Because I had never heard that story before about him recording on Lab 75.
Oh yeah. Wow, gosh. I was like going, what story? What is he talking about? Well, yeah. When Lyle, I was his roommate in school. We shared a house. We shared a house together on. It's still there. The house is still there on Sycamore Street at the bottom of what used to be IWF. Used to come down into Sycamore, but it doesn't. The house is still there. It hasn't changed a thing a bit. I'd hate to go in and look and see what it looks like on the inside now. but we were great friends and roommates and continued to be great friends for a long time. During the recording of Lab 75, which Leon Breeden was recognized, Lyle's talent and his genius, and basically let him write the whole record and basically produce the whole record. And there was an arrangement of a song, you may have played it before, What Was, his arrangement of What Was, the Chick Corea tune. In the middle of that song, there's a cadenza, a piano cadenza. And Lyle did it on session, and he wasn't happy with it. So he went to I'll never forget it, it's Reel to Reel Studios in Dallas, which probably isn't there anymore. And he said, I'm going to redo the cadenza. And we're all going, and this is obviously before Pro Tools or anything digital. This is like 2-inch tape. And okay, when the band stops, you start playing the cadenza, and then the whole thing was he would bring the band back in tempo by doing a vamp, and then the band would come back in after that. And we're going, how are you going to know how long to play the cadenza and how to bring the band back in at the right spot? Because, I mean, we could splice a little bit. You could splice something in after he does his re-intro, which I'm not sure whether they did or not. But, well, no, actually they didn't. So he said, well, let me time it. So he timed it. So he had his watch up there. And so okay, we hit. And once the other thing was like, well, once we hit record, it's going to erase the track that you originally recorded. I said, okay. So he went ahead, and they hit record, and he plays incredible cadenza, which is still on the record, on that record, and looked at the watch the whole time, and at the right spot, he started doing the vamp, and it was perfect. Like the band came back in right. I mean, he had timed it, and he remembered the tempo just right, and so they didn't have to splice at all. They just he did it. So it was pretty incredible. It was a pretty incredible moment.
Wow.
And
well, while we set up Lyle, I sent you the question from Ken Boom, and I see Ken Boom's name there. Let me see if I can unmute Ken and let him ask his question about Lyle to you.
Okay.
We'll give Ken a second to unmute, and hopefully he's still there. Maybe he stepped away. Well, we'll wait, see if Ken comes back in. Frank, what do you see for future once things get back to normal, or hope for the future once things get back to normal?
It's hard to know. I know in New York, people in the news, they'd say all this stuff is going on. So I'd get my mask, we'd go get our city bike, and we'd ride through. And it was never quite what the news said it was. It was always way worse in the news than it really was here, right? It's just kind of quiet. A lot of people have left to go to their other places. Manhattan, or New York City, Manhattan especially, a lot of folks have money, so they have other places they can go during this time. So the city's a bit empty still. But I think that, like we were talking about, people have a natural desire to kind of, glom together. And so I'm pretty sure that once, it's like anything, it's like we forgot all about SARS, we've forgotten all about all the other things, and there's always been Ebola was something for a while, and we've had various presidents, and they said, "Oh, this guy's going to ruin America," and 9 years later, we've forgotten they were ever president, right? So I think because we're like that, I think our chances of once the numbers are low, and no one's talking about it on the news or talking about other things, people have short memories for things. It's like, and so I'm kind of thinking if that's the case and no one gets sick and people can glom together, then, within a few months of kind of us being able to feel a bit safe, I think we'll discover that things go back to normal pretty quickly. Because I think our natural desire is like Pat and I were saying, both saying, people like to be together. People like you were saying as well, people like to have that feeling of being together, like, we're communal feeling. I think people like that. So as long as we're hardwired that way, which I think we are, then we'll probably go back. Now, some businesses that have gone away, other businesses will replace them, but it's like that anyway, right? In New York, it's like, well, remember when that used to be the pizzeria? Now it's like a bowling alley, and now it's like another pizzeria. That's always happened. So I feel like this is just going to be a more severe sort of version of that. But I can see, like, in 6 months from now, if we can go back to life, we'll go back to life.
Yeah, I hope you're right.
Yeah, Pat, it looks like Ken wants me to ask you. Let me go back, find his question.
Pat, don't. I'm going to ask you about Amy Grant still. Don't let me forget.
Okay, so Ken's question for Pat. Let me try to summarize this. When you collaborated with Lyle...
It says he's here. He says, "Hey, Mike, I'm here."
Oh, is that what he's saying? I could only see the "Hey, Mike, I'm..."
Well,
he unmuted.
I don't know. I think it's here.
He unmuted, but then he's back muted.
Oh.
So let me try to summarize.
It looks like he's unmuted now.
You there?
Hey, Ken, are you there?
Ken. You're unmuted, Ken. You there?
Yeah, maybe he's trying to talk.
No. All right. Well, let me get back there. He said, when you were recording Schemes and jump in, Ken, if you end up there. When you were recording Schemes and Dreams with Lyle, and you two co-wrote songs, or?
Yes, we co-wrote almost everything on the record.
Okay. And you did a trip to Lyle's countryside home studio outside of Madison to rehearse.
Yes.
And Lyle had described the property to you, and he mentioned, okay, he created nature trails for hiking. He did, looks like he did a lot of work, and then developed a world-class recording studio in his existing barn on the property. Wow.
Yeah.
Divided the barn up into rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what he's getting to is, in that time, and some of this may go back to when you guys were roommates, he said Jeffrey Eccles, who we talked about right after he passed here, had gone up to that space with Lyle and taken several composition lessons with him and recorded some of that.
That's something.
Yeah. And so Ken's big question is, most people have truly no idea how profound and brilliant Lyle was in his understanding of designing music from the ground up. Could you describe what the retreat to Lyle's was like for you, the rehearsal time, and how much it impacted you?
Wow. Well, first of all, that property was beautiful. It was like idyllic. And I remember going there, and I spent maybe almost a week there getting, we were co-writing for this record that I was going to do on Sheffield Lab Records. And I remember helping him build a stone wall. We spent half a day building a stone wall. Like finding the stones that fit, and and that was Lyle. He was like, he would get totally absorbed into a project, and it was also the winter time, and they had a skating pond, and we went skating too. It was incredible. Anyway, as far as well, I was there, and then Steve Rodby came up because he co-produced that record too, and the three of us. To me, it was like one big, incredible music lesson, because I had my songs that I had written that I wanted Lyle to make better, and he would play through the song and he'd go, okay, well, here, what do you think about, and then he'd just go off in this direction you're going, and I'm going, yes, let's do that. And so, it was kind of like having someone take what you do and what your natural music instinct is, and just open up all these doors to show you what's possible. And that was his genius. Is like he was, I mean, you can hear it in his music today. It's just like there's no boundaries, there's no lack of he never would fall into any kind of cliche. He would always just go for the total creative passion, and that's what I would say most about Lyle. And I know Dan knew Lyle very well too, and actually Dan's responsible for probably Lyle and I both going to North Texas. And
and Dan, when they were 13 or 14, told Lyle he needed to meet this guitarist named Pat, and about the same time told Pat he needed to meet this keyboard player named Lyle Mays, and
that's right,
directed them to create music together.
I'd heard that, and I also heard that Lyle and Kirby Stewart, God rest his soul, and Steve Houghton played a trio thing at the Wichita Jazz Festival, and that's where Woody Herman heard that rhythm section and hired the rhythm section. And that's also where Pat Metheny heard Lyle play, I think, for the first time, possibly. And so that was a real key thing there. And Lyle was, I don't know how to explain him. He, my good friend who also was at school at the same time, Mark Johnson, the bass player, was, nobody really knew that he had any talent for playing jazz at all. He was pretty much a symphony guy. And somehow Lyle got hold of him, and they started playing together, and, all of a sudden, Mark was just like this incredible bass player. And that, and it was because of playing with Lyle, I'm convinced. That's where he got it. It was because Lyle was able to open those doors for him. And, so I was really grateful I had that time with Lyle. I'm grateful, so grateful, that we got to do that record together. And Steve called me up shortly after Lyle passed and told me, he said, I just want you to know that was one of the happiest times of Lyle's life, that he for him, making music with friends was the most important thing in the world. And that's what, and he, and I thought it was so nice of Steve to say that. And so Lyle's, he's incredible, and if people don't know about him, they should check him out. And he's one of those things. He's one of those overlooked, because he never pursued it. He never pursued the solo career. He dabbled in it, but he never really had the desire to be a jazz star, so to speak. And
right.
He just wanted to make music, and that was all. That's what all he was about, And whatever he did, he was all about. Whether it was playing pool, and he was like rated as like one of the top 10 pool players in the world for a while.
Wow.
And he never play chess with him. Don't ever play chess with him.
And then, did you talk to him much about after he had stopped touring and went into computer programming?
Yeah,
because it makes perfect sense the way his mind works. That if he got into that, he would be great. I
talked to him a couple of times after that, and he just kind of, his and I said, Lyle, how come, what's the deal? Are you going to play again? Are you going to make? He says, no, the music business just kind of left me, and I'm into writing code now, and that's what he wanted to do. And he had that kind of mind.
Yeah.
And I remember he came. It was one of the best things about being on the road is you can go visit people, as I'm sure you know, Frank. It's like you can actually go see friends. And so when I was ever in LA, I would make it a point to get together with Lyle, and we'd have dinner or something. And he was at that point sort of in that, had just gotten into that with the, was it the Southern Cal Arts? No, not Cal Arts. I can't remember the name of the school. Caltech. Anyway, hey, that's where he was started. He had just started hanging out with all these, software engineers and guys at Caltech, and he ended up doing it. There's an online concert that he did based on an algorithm. You can find it. It's an amazing concert. It's amazing. It's just it's musical. You wouldn't think that would be musical, but he made it musical. So, well, I'm going on too long. Sorry.
That's
it started
only Lyle, right?
Yeah.
Well, why don't we open up and see if our last few people here have any questions for you two guys. So Dan, Judy, Sergio, anybody have questions for Pat or for Frank? I think you can unmute. Let me change this if I need to. Dan, can you unmute or no? I'll check, let people unmute themselves.
You're on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey.
I'd just like to say a couple of things. One, I'm very impressed, and not surprisingly so, that Frank and Pat both understand that all music has value and speaks to someone. And if it doesn't speak to you, it's not the fault of the music. And so they've had a varied and I think extremely successful careers in music, and I offer them kudos for their good success. But it's because they're very open musicians. They're not locked into a narrow point of view. Thanks, guys.
Oh, well, thank you, Dan. Good to see you. And I'll
Good to see you.
try to get down to Denton one of these days when this is all over.
Let us know.
Yeah, we should all hang out and have a dinner or something. That'd be nice, right?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Frank, love it. Yeah.
Yeah, you were normally down a couple times a year, Pat. I know you'd come in and.
Yeah, if like that's one of the other good thing about the road is that I'd look at the schedule, see where we're going, and if it was like Denver or LA or Dallas or Kansas City, I knew guys that I could call. We could play gigs,
Yeah.
So that's what, and so that's what I would do in Dallas. Is like I'd try to play it.
Sure.
So I still love to play, which I'm thankful for. So that's we all do. That's why we're still doing this.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Do you have any questions? I think you said you had a question.
No,
What is it?
I know
Well,
what they're doing. It's great.
Hi, Judy.
Hey, Judy.
Hi, how are you? I just want to say a huge thank you. I hear all the time about people coming to UNT because of Dan, and they're pretty crazy about Jill too. And what I love at our Rising Star concert, Sergio was part of the first class of the Rising Stars. The students sit next to Jill. And that makes me feel so good. And thank you both for coming on and sharing. And we are ready to find many places for you to play. I'm so glad that you're using this time to give a wonderful message. I'm sure many students will view this. And so thank you for the encouragement. And I took down some quotes, including that last one from Dan. That was terrific. So thank you. So good to be here tonight.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Judy.
Hey, Sergio, you have anything? Or are we just an album cover at this point?
Sorry, guys. I have a sleeping baby, so that's why I'm not
I wondered
speaking
about
much.
that.
Sorry.
That's all right.
You have a baby?
Great to see everybody. So good to see you, Pat, and thank you for all this beautiful things that you're sharing with us.
Yeah,
Well,
we miss
no,
you,
I didn't know you
Sergio.
had. I didn't know you had a baby, bud.
Yeah. He's
How
almost
old?
a year now.
Congratulations! I didn't know that. That's
Mhm.
fantastic. Are
Thank
you
you. Thank you
sleeping?
so much.
Are you sleeping?
Yeah. I'm doing good now. The first few months, that's always a challenge. But
Sergio was my assistant when I first started teaching there, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. I mean, literally would not have been able to do it at all.
Yeah. Well,
Are
like,
you teaching virtually, Sergio?
a combination. I am teaching lessons in person, and then I have some group classes that I'm teaching online.
Oh, okay.
Just to avoid the exposure. But we do have some meetings, on special occasions in person.
Cool.
well, like Judy was talking about, Sergio was one that was on our Rising Stars concert, and then a few years later he was on playing the regular part of the series too.
Yeah.
And planned on bringing him back to play
Yeah.
again, but he moved to Cincinnati on us.
It happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a great position and great school up there, and they're lucky to have him there.
Yeah.
Ken, good to see you.
Ken, did you hear the question and answer?
Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, he's still muted, or
He just puts the
It's fine.
this over the picture. I think it comes up. He ought to know that, though.
no? Yeah, it says he's unmuted, but yeah.
Well, I'm going to brag on Ken. He did such a good job with his streaming from Quiet Piano Gallery. So if any of you are in the area and you want to record, I understand that they don't charge very much for it. It's over $1 million state-of-the-art facility. And Ken did such a remarkable job with Mike in bringing us our concert.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, yeah. While we're there, let me do this. Go
I will be right
back.
back. I'm coming right back.
Whoop. Let me go back to our home screen here. For those of you that don't know, on our YouTube page, and that's what I'm going to share here, which it's not showing up that way. But if you search Dallas Jazz Piano Society on YouTube, let me go to the playlist. Our concert series, and this year is going to be incredible because we're going to have Ken there for all of them doing high-def video and audio. So we have the 2021 season. We've got Dan's Clinic up there. We've got the Jazz Explained episodes. We've got a playlist of people covering Dan's tunes. We've got a playlist that Sergio and I both did our top 10 favorite performances. And then we also have the concert series all the way back to almost the start to 2011.
Oh wow!
So you can see a lot of our seasons and concerts and a lot of great jazz piano stuff on our YouTube page. In fact, this show will be archived there too, and probably just shortly later tonight.
That's a good way to spend some time too.
That's a great way to kill some time while you're quarantined.
Yeah. You need some positive experience.
Yeah.
What is Dan Hurley drinking? Whatever you're drinking, I'm going to drink that because you look exactly the same as you did when we were in school. How's that possible?
It's empty now.
Oh, you're not.
He was having a gin and tonic too, but he liked scotch and drambuie and too many things.
All right, I'm going to have that then from now on.
Hey, the last live in-person concert I heard was March 12th, was Dan's group playing on, and they sounded great.
That's March. Oh, that's cute. I love that. That's a cute picture.
Oh, thank you.
Is that one of your granddaughters? Oh, there's
Yeah,
two of them.
I think you went to that exhibit. It was at the Kimball
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
with Monet.
Oh, yes, indeed. I love it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But that's adorable with
Thank you. Better than the COVID hair. Ken, have you figured it out? Come on, Ken, you can do this. Oh,
That's
dear,
all right.
Sorry.
That's all right. Well, Pat and Frank, it was great to have
Thank
you with
you.
us
Great to see
tonight.
you guys and hear you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
That's great to be here. Thank you so much. And
Look forward to hanging out with both of you in person sometime soon.
well, that sounds great to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll do it.
All right. Well,
And
next
good to
month,
see you.
Stay safe on the road.
Good to see you guys.
Okay.
Same here.
next month, October, the concert on October 8th is going to be Women of Song, and it's Rosanna Eckert doing all music by women composers and musicians, and the Jazz Explained on the Monday before October 5th. I'll be talking with Rosanna about that concert.
Oh, cool.
She's pretty
I hope
good.
yeah, she is.
She's very good.
So that should be great. Thanks
Really
everyone who joined us to hang out tonight too.
All right,
Well,
everybody be
take
safe.
care. Stay safe.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Stay,
Frank.
stay mentally safe, too.
Yeah, you tell me what your Amy Grant thing was later, I guess.
All right, I'll email you.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks,
All
y'all.
right, thanks. Bye.
Good night, y'all.